Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Let's keep it going. I've seen you say in other interviews you believe Oklahoma is one of, if not the most undervalued teams. I think a lot of people listening kind of maybe know a little bit of the context there, but would be curious what it is about Oklahoma that has you so excited.
Yeah, and it was first of all, they've got the defense. You know, last year they held opponents to 87 yards per game below their season average, number 6 in the country. The majority of the defense is back. Offense was their problem last year. They had 0 returning starters on the offensive line. This year they have a veteran offensive line, and Bill Benba, one of the best offensive line coaches out there. The receiving corps was banged up last year. At one point they were down their top 5 receivers due to injury. Well, they get those injured players back, and they had some transfers. And I'll bring Clemson into the equation there. 2 years ago, Cade Klubnik was much maligned. He had 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions because he had lost his top 3 receivers prior to the season. Well, last year he got those injured players back. They added to the mix. All of a sudden, he had 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I see the same thing with Oklahoma. The receiving corps goes from below average to a strength this year. They add in Jade Knott at running back from Cal, who I thought was the best running back in the Pac-12 2 years ago. And they also add in John Mateer from Washington State and Washington State's offensive coordinator. So now with an offense to go with that defense. And then last year, they only had 3 SEC home games. Well, this year, they only have 3 true SEC road games, with Texas being at a neutral site. So it's still a tough schedule, but a better schedule, much improved offense, outstanding defense, solid special teams. I see them as a potential playoff team, despite the fact they were 6-7 last year.
Let me ask you this. In your experience covering this sport, I know it's a relatively new phenomenon of new OC being able to bring his quarterback with him. I guess that Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley would probably qualify for that. But is there any data that show because, I think the expectation is obviously, hey, John Mateer is going to be awesome because he played in this system, even if he's going from the Pac-12/Pac-2 to the SEC. I'm just curious because you would know this better than anybody. Do we have any data yet on coaches that are able to bring a quarterback with them that already knows his system and the impact that can have at the next stop?
Yeah, and we could take a look at Western Kentucky as another one of those examples. 2 years ago, they brought in Bailey Zappi and his offensive coordinator. And all of a sudden, Bailey Zappi threw for nearly 6,000 yards that year. And he's actually going back to the well this year. He's bringing in Abilene Christian's offensive coordinator and Abilene Christian's quarterback. So he's trying to get lightning to strike twice. The brief history we have of this, I've seen good success. So I'm expecting the same for Oklahoma.
You mentioned potential playoff team. I'd just be curious, when you're either doing your rankings or I don't know if you make a formal playoff picks at any point, but how much do you factor in schedule? You say Oklahoma's schedule is easier than a year ago, still obviously very tough, as opposed to other schools in the SEC that aren't so tough. And, I'll just tell you, from my perspective, as I'm looking at a 12-team playoff in the preseason this year, I'm looking at it a lot differently than a year ago, because I think a year ago is just, there's going to be 7 at-large bids. It's generally going to be the most talented teams. Then in Indiana, and I don't want to disrespect the talent that they had, but they got some schedule breaks along the way that I think we can all agree. Tennessee had an easier schedule than other teams in the SEC. It doesn't mean they didn't belong. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm looking more at schedules now than ever before, because as important as they've always been, it feels like they're more imbalanced than ever. So again, just a bigger picture college football question of when you're either doing your rankings, when you're making any projections for the season, how much do you factor in schedules?
It's huge. Look at my SEC forecast, for example. Last year, Georgia came in number 1 in the country in the preseason, but they had to play their 3 toughest opponents on the road: Alabama, Mississippi, Texas. Heck, they lost 2 of those games. Well, this year, their 3 toughest opponents, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, all have to travel to Georgia, and they haven't lost a game between the hedges this decade. Wow. It's been 6 years since they've lost a home game. So I think the schedule sets them up very well. That's why I picked them at the top of the SEC. And then look at the Big 12. Now, Big 12, I can make a case for any of 8 teams getting to and winning the Big 12 title. But I went with schedule. And you look at Arizona State, for example, the defending champ. This year they have to play Baylor on the road, Utah on the road, Iowa State on the road. So it's three really tough road games against the premier team. Same thing with Texas Tech. Best team money can buy under Joey McGuire this year, but they have to play Utah on the road, Arizona State on the road, Kansas State on the road. Remember what happened to Georgia last year? And Joey McGuire's 15-5 at home, but just 6-10 on the road. You look at Baylor, for example, the team I picked atop the Big 12. Their road games are Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Arizona, three teams that had losing records last year. They get their toughest opponents at home. Same thing with Utah. Same thing with Iowa State. That's why that's the reason that I picked the Big 12 in the order is schedule.
Very good. Couple questions. We'll get you out of here. You mentioned the Big 12. By the way, any other teams that you feel are being totally undervalued this preseason outside of Oklahoma that you could share?
I'd say other surprise teams would be Texas A&M, which has a legitimate shot. And remember, Texas A&M was actually playing Texas in the season final for a shot at the SEC title game last year. And then Illinois. I know Illinois finished 10-3, but they didn't blow me away last year. This year, they've got the talent. They're number 3 on my experience chart. They do have to play Indiana on the road, but I think that's winnable. They have to play Ohio State at home. But guess what? Last year in the 7th game of the season, they took on defending national champ Michigan and beat them at home. This year, they're taking on the defending national champ Ohio State. Both teams lost 14 or 15 players to the NFL. Illinois got practically their whole team back from last year. Could be a potential upset there. Other than that, it's a very manageable schedule, so watch out for Illinois.